welcome to another Adventures in History. Today, we are going to focus on the amazing life of one of the most interesting people in American history, Benjamin Franklin. Now, he wasn't just one thing, he didn't have just one job. He was a printer, he was an inventor, he was a scientist, he was a writer, he was a musician, and he even helped start this very country. So get ready, Ben Franklin's story is pretty electrifying. Ben Franklin was born in 1706 in Boston, Massachusetts. He was the 15th of 17 children. Can you imagine that many brothers and sisters? His dad made soap and candles, and money was pretty tight for Ben's family. Ben loved to read and ask questions and figure out how things worked. He only went to school for 2 years, but he loved to read so much, he taught himself the rest by reading lots of books. Here's a fun fact. He was such a good swimmer as a kid, and he already started inventing. He made his own swim fins out of wood for his hands. Ben's dad decided that it was time for Ben to start working. Now, Ben had no interest in making soap and candles like his father, so they started looking for a place for Ben to apprentice. Now, an apprentice means living with a craftsman for a certain number of years and learning their trade. At the end of the years of service, the young man would be able to go out and start their own business. So when Ben was 12, he became an apprentice at his brother's newspaper. He learned all about the printing press, which was a large machine, and it printed the news. Ben wanted to write too, so he secretly created funny stories and wise sayings using the made up name of Silence Dogood. These letters were printed in his brother's paper, and people loved them. Nobody had any idea that a teenager was writing them until Ben finally told his brother the truth. His brother was not happy and punished him. Things were not easy for Ben at his brother's house, and his brother had a few other apprentices and didn't want anybody to think he was giving Ben special treatment, so he treated Ben pretty badly. At just 17 years old, Ben decided to start a new life. He ran away and moved to Philadelphia. He walked into town with a loaf of bread under each arm and he didn't know anyone, but he quickly got a job at a print shop and soon became one of the city's smartest and most respected citizens. When he arrived in Philadelphia, he needed a place to stay and he rented a room from the Reed family. He met their daughter Deborah and they had a short courtship, but it ended when he went to London in 1724. Several years later, they actually got married in 1730. Together, they worked in the shop together and raised three children. Now, Deborah preferred to stay in Philadelphia while her husband traveled, and they wrote many letters back and forth over the years. Sadly, she suffered a stroke while Ben was away one day, and she wrote him a letter telling him of her poor health and asking him to come home. Tragically, he was not able to return before she passed away in 1774. She is buried in Christ Church Cemetery next to her husband today. Now, we talked about Ben having a print shop and his own newspaper, but he also wrote a book called Poor Richard's Almanac. It had weather reports, jokes, clever advice. People loved it. It was full of all kinds of fun sayings, like a penny saved is a penny earned, and early to bed and early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. Ben was a lot of fun. He loved animals. He had a pet squirrel named Scugs. He even sent a large gray squirrel as a gift to a really close friend in London. Ben loved solving problems and he loved inventing things. He invented bifocal glasses so people could see up close and far away at the same time. He actually took two sets of lenses, cut them apart, and then reattached them to each other to create the glasses. He created the Franklin stove to heat homes better. It was made of iron and would sit in the middle of a room. This allowed better airflow, but more importantly, the heat would radiate to the whole room. Even after the fire was out, the iron walls would continue to provide warmth. And he even created his own musical instrument made of spinning glass bowls. This was called the glass harmonica, and he based it on the concept of running a wet finger around the rim of a glass. His wife said it sounded like the music of angels. Mozart even wrote music for it. Interesting enough, Ben didn't actually patent any of his inventions. He said inventions should help everyone, not just make money. Let's talk about Ben as the scientist. In 1752, he did something shocking, literally shocking. He flew a kite during a thunderstorm to prove that lightning is electricity. Please don't try doing this at home. Now, he didn't get zapped, but he did make history. And from that information, he actually invented something called the lightning rod, which helps protect buildings from fires during storms. Lightning rods are still being used today, and they have protected thousands of buildings over the years. Ben was all about helping the world around him. He helped start the first public library, the first hospital, the first fire department in America. He also improved the postal service by creating the first mail delivery system that works between all 13 colonies. He became the first postmaster general of the United States. Now, things in the 13 colonies were starting to get pretty tense, and Ben was always thinking and trying to problem solve. And he came up with something called the Albany Plan of Union in 1754. It was never carried out, but it was the first time an idea of all 13 colonies working together and being under one government came up. Now, to help promote his plan, he printed a graphic that looked like a snake that was broken up into parts with the words join or die underneath. Now, this idea was that the colonies could do great things if they worked together, but individually they wouldn't survive, just like different parts of a snake can't survive on its own. The graphic was used again during the Stamp Act and the Revolutionary War. Things didn't get any better in the 13 colonies. So in 1776, Ben was one of the oldest and wisest men at the Second Continental Congress. Here he was with representatives from all 13 colonies who planned and executed how the colonies could break free from King George of England. He was part of the Committee of Five that helped write and sign the Declaration of Independence. He even joked, "We must all hang together, or we shall surely hang separately." He knew the King of England was not going to be happy about the colonies trying to become their own country, and if they didn't succeed, the king would get his revenge. During the Revolutionary War, Ben sailed across the ocean to France to ask for help. He was the first American diplomat, and he spent almost 10 years there. The French loved him. He wore a simple fur hat and simple clothes. Now, he did this to show that he was just a simple colonist and not some fancy European. He told great stories, and he convinced them to send money, soldiers, and ships to help America win the war. Ben Franklin actually became a celebrity in France. People made statues and painted pictures of him. Later, he was again with the men who were helping shape the future of our country. He was part of the Constitutional Convention and helped write the US Constitution. Even though he was old and in poor health and often in a lot of pain, he showed up every day because he believed in building a better future. He often needed help standing or moving around, and he was no longer able to ride a horse, so a special chair called a sedan was used to carry him around. He was one of only 6 men who had the privilege of signing not only the Declaration of Independence, but also the Constitution. Now, the convention was run by George Washington, and at the end of the convention, Ben commented that he had been sitting looking at Washington's chair, and he hadn't been able to decide if it was a rising or a setting sun on the back. But he knew now that the Constitution was written, it was a rising sun. Ben was not sure about the future of the United States during the convention, but after the Constitution was signed, he knew that the country was just starting and its future was bright. Ben Franklin died in 1790 in Philadelphia, and he's buried only a few blocks away from the room where the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution were debated and signed. He might be gone, but his ideas, inventions, and wisdom are still part of our world today. He once said, "An investment in knowledge pays the best interest." That means learning is one of the most valuable things you can do, and he truly believed that. He never stopped learning. As you can see, Ben Franklin was a pretty amazing man. So make sure you stay curious, you think big, and you keep learning just like Ben did.